Dear friends, I'm very happy to be with you. I'm very happy, very honored that you are having this conversation with me, that you're willing to listen, that you lend me a little bit of your time to discuss important subjects. And those subjects are your own health, my own health, my well being. Because after all, the only way to have a joyful life is to have well being. And after this 2-year epidemic and all these health concerns, and whether you went one way or the other, whether you got the disease, whether you didn't, whatever, it just turned everything upside down. All our lives, even if you didn't want to pay any attention, were absolutely distorted. There were so many things that we all hated about this thing. We couldn't visit people. We had to wear the mask all the time. We for some time we couldn't even go out shopping or go to the street or even go to church, let alone everything else. So that can tell you how important having our health is, because that health is the foundation of well-being, and well-being is the foundation of joyful life. If we don't have health, we don't have well-being, we don't have joy. And everything goes out of the window, and we have to concentrate our lives, all our time, just to try to don't get the disease, don't take this, don't do that. And unfortunately, for many people, that meant the end of their lives. So that tells you how important this subject is. And if one thing we learned from this episode is that we should pay a lot more attention to our health. We should have more say-so. And that's important. And that's important because in modern medical world, the patient listens and obeys. No. You have to have a say-so. You have to have information. You have to think what you can do, what you cannot do, where you can help. In few words, you are the CEO of your health management system. So you are the one that's going to ask the questions, and you are the one that's going to take decisions. That has to be based on good information. And this is what these broadcasts are all about. And every week we come to you. I'm Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, Medical Director of BioCare Hospital, through the help of Truth Be Told Radio Network, which you can search for in Spotify and listen to over 150 programs like this. And you can listen to different subjects. You can share them. You can tell people around you, friends, coworkers, etc., that they could listen to some of these messages and see where they can change their own lifestyles to improve it. So don't forget that you'd have to turn on your Truth Be Told Radio Network broadcast every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but you have a repeat the following morning, Saturday morning at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. But once again, all you have to do is search for Truth Be Told Radio Network. We're also in every social media you want to review. You want to go and search for Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, BioCare Hospital, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Twitch, on YouTube. In the one that you like, you're going to find us. And it's very important that we have this conversation. I would appreciate very much if you follow me and if you give me a like, etc., because that creates a community of people that think alike. This morning, I was thinking of reviewing of the programs that we have made and thinking of we are going to talk about what this week. And the idea came few days ago, because I'm always searching the literature. I'm always searching for information. Sometimes it's in the medical literature. Sometimes it's from information I get from a friend, a colleague, somewhere in the world. We have a huge network of doctors and hospitals that are on the alternative world, and we're always communicating. But there was one subject that was very dear to me, and it was very, very important. And I could say that deep in my heart, I knew the answer. But in today's medical world, believing something or thinking of something is not good enough for the peers and for peer review. I don't know if that has been an advantage or a disadvantage, but nevertheless, you cannot say, I think that. You have to prove it. You have to be very, very solid in the arguments that you give in order to be accepted by peers. I could convince many people that good eating is very good, but that's not good enough for the medical world. They want you to say this, they want to say that, not forgetting that even medical literature is very biased, and many times is not exactly what you think it is, but nevertheless you have to comply with that. So I was always looking for information. I thought, I'm sure I'm right, but I want to be able to prove it. And all of a sudden, without really looking very much into it, I find this report, which is very recent. It's actually from 2021. I'm still in the last century, 2021, and it talks about sea salt. And that's a question that I wanted to answer in a very solid way because it's a very frequent question. As I have told you, I'm a doctor, I see patients, I go to the hospital, I'm at the kitchen of the hospital every day, I see what they're doing, and I have my rules, which again, I think they're right, but I want to be able to face any scientific environment and say, this is it, this is the way things are. And the information that I was longing to get was, is sea salt better than refined salt? Again, that's a question that patients ask me all the time. I mean, I'm sure you have wondered many times, is sea salt better than refined salt? And in the last couple of years or more, a little bit more probably, there is a new kid in the block, and many people ask me for it. What about Himalayan pink salt? Because it's supposed to be gourmet salt, refined in the sense of refinement, and salt, and it's preferred by many gourmet chefs and that type of thing. And the question is it any better than sea salt? Is it any better than refined salt? Well, let me tell you, what I found is just a dream come true. I found a study that was done in South Korea by a very, very prestigious and respected research group. And they were so meticulous. They took such a good care to prove every point beyond any possibility of questioning or doubting. It was so well done. And it was not only very well done, but they had contributors from around the world to double check this part or that part and to see if indeed taking one salt over the other could make a difference in the body. And that was made in reference to high blood pressure. High blood pressure, as you know, and we have discussed it in these broadcasts, is what's called the silent killer. It affects the body. It affects every function. It affects very specifically our heart, our kidneys, directly. High blood pressure has a direct impact on our heart and kidneys, and then on the vascular tree, our veins and arteries. So what can you expect of people with high blood pressure? Heart damage, kidney damage, vascular system damage. So the possibility of having an infarction, a heart failure, a kidney failure with all its consequences, these are really, really very bad diseases. Those of you that have had a heart infarction or heart insufficiency know that life will never be the same again. And I would probably say that's even worse when you have a kidney insufficiency. Just think of a body that you cannot clean, that you cannot cleanse. Just think of all the consequences. And thirdly, the damage to the vascular system. So the possibility of having a thrombosis or any blockage or any breakage, a hemorrhage, a thrombotic problem, let's say, if it's in a distant part with no importance, not much of a problem. But what if it's in the brain? You have a stroke. What's if in the heart you have a heart attack? What's it in any important organ? Even your limbs. You have a thrombotic problem that has to be treated for the rest of your life. So the question is, doing sea salt can help? Well, stay with me, because I have very good news for you. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. My friends, I'm back, and I hope that you're anxious to hear the answer. I'm Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, and my question was very simple. Can we honestly, scientifically, say that having sea salt is better than having refined salt? And that was the question. And I was telling you about a very important, very thorough study on the differences between the two of them, made in a very meticulous, very scientific way. So you cannot object it. It has such a good quality of research that you just cannot say but or if. No. It's absolutely fantastic. And any of you that want to hear how this study was made, I'm willing to give you the reference. All you have to do is send me a message. We are in all social media and Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and you can ask any question, including, Doctor, you mentioned a Korean study on the differences between sea salt and refined salt. Could we get the reference so we can read it ourselves, or I can give it to my doctor or to a friend of mine? I'll be very happy to provide it. Well, what these people did, don't let me forget the Himalayan salt, which is very much in fashion, because that's a very frequent question. And I'm going to tell you what are the differences. For all my professional life, I can tell you that from the day I was in medical school, even before I became an MD, I grew up as a doctor in the times where a lot of nonsenses, absolutely nonsenses, were told to people. And we, and I include myself, okay, I confess that I believed it too at that point, just follow the rule. One day we woke up, and somebody told us that you shouldn't have sea salt, you should have refined salt because it has iodine. And iodine is very important for you. I say it right now. Yes, iodine is very important for you. But having refined salt, just because of that, is a very high price to pay. So next day you woke up and they told you, no, you cannot have eggs because they raise your cholesterol and that can kill you. You shouldn't have more than 2 eggs in a week. And then the following morning, we woke up and somebody told us that you couldn't have butter or bacon because they were bad fats. You could have a substitute, which was margarine, which is not an animal fat. And they gave us all sorts of arguments to try to convince us of those things. And then they told us about milk. Fat in milk is bad for you. You have to drink, you have to give your children, which is almost criminal, low-fat milk. Why? Because I say so. Look at me, I have a white gown, I have a big black board behind me, I know what I'm talking about. And we believed it. And ever since that day, I started looking at the world around me, looking at people, how they ate, looking at peoples of the world that were very healthy. And I could see that all of them consumed sea salt, eggs, and dairy products, and you name it. And then I thought, this is what convinced me the most. I thought, could it really be that when God told me, as he says in Genesis, and I give you these plants, and I give you these animals, and I give you all this food for your nourishment, could it be that he was wrong? Could it be that he created eggs for our cholesterol to go up? Could it be that he created milk and dairy products for us to get arteriosclerosis? Could it be that the food industry knew better? And it just didn't make sense. So for many years, I thought there has to be something wrong about it. It cannot be true. And as years passed, decades passed, very silently, very quietly, we're making away with margarine. We're going back to eating eggs, and we're making changes We're going back on track because we were wrong. However, nobody admits we were wrong. Nobody will say we were wrong. Sorry. Sorry. If I ever told you to have margarine instead of butter, sorry, I was wrong. Nobody told you. If I told you to have refined salt instead of sea salt, sorry, I was wrong. Nobody is going to tell you if I ever told you that eggs are bad for you, sorry, I was wrong. Nobody will tell you that. The changes have happened very quietly, like going back to better nutritional patterns. So, in a way, I feel vindicated. I was right. The food God provided us with is good. So there must be something wrong about these foods that made to think that they had a problem. And I'm going to tell you what, because we right now, as research has advanced, we know a lot of what was wrong. And that's why they're going back on their tracks, because they know they were wrong and they were advising people wrong. Well, it turns out, and any of you that has high blood pressure, anyone that has gone to a doctor to check high blood pressure, any one of you that has a relative with high blood pressure know one of the first things your doctor is going to tell you, if not the very first, is you have to reduce the amount of salt you take. They're giving you only half the answer. They should be saying you have to reduce the amount of sodium that you are taking. Not salt, sodium. Sodium is an atom, it's a molecule that's attracts water. We all have seen it. If you are as old as I am, you will remember that salt used to have to be kept very tight, and if not with some grains like rice, so it would pour because it got very humid and stick one grain to the other, and then you couldn't use a salt shaker. Actually, in the old times, we didn't have a salt shaker. We had little dishes, and you took the salt directly from that little dish. That's the way salt was. But now, one day I woke up, I must have been, I don't know, not even 20 years old, and they told me, look at this salt. It pours. It might be raining, it might be drizzle, might be whatever. It pours. It always pours. And put it in your finger. It's completely dry. And I thought, something is wrong. The same as I panic every time I see a carton of milk that's in the aisle of a supermarket, not in the fridge. You have to convince me that that's not unnatural. So, okay, I saw that salt, but we saw the problems advancing and advancing and advancing. High blood pressure has been advancing ever since we discovered refined salt. And this article brought me to the problem, to the core of the problem. There's something that I always felt. There's something good about sea salt. And let me tell you, to begin with, sea salt has 15% less sodium than refined salt. So if you were to change your refined salt by sea salt, just by that fact, even if you keep eating the same amount of salt in grams, you're taking 15% less sodium. And that can make a difference. Not only that, you say, okay, it's that. What is the other 15% then? Okay, the other 15% are going to be also chlorides. Remember that salt is sodium chloride, but sea salt is only 85% sodium chloride. And the other 5, the next 5, are potassium chloride. And what God gave humans to handle sodium successfully? Potassium. But if we eat just refined salt and no vegetables and no fruits that are rich in potassium, then we have a problem. What if you have sea salt? You have less sodium and your potassium. And there are a lot more to sea salt that I have to tell you. And don't forget that pink Himalayan salt. I'll be right back, so stay right there. I'm Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, and I'm very excited to talk to you today because I'm telling you about a subject that's very close to my heart. It is very close to my heart because as a doctor, I grew up seeing a number of mistakes, big mistakes, that I believed. Because I was a young doctor and I thought that, well, if a guy with a white gown and a big university title and a PhD and so on says so, it's because he knows what he's talking about. He's published so many papers, he knows a lot, this is university's first class, etc. So I have to believe it, and we believed it. We believed that butter was bad, margarine was good. We believed that low-fat milk was good. Was good, and whole milk was bad. And we thought that eating eggs was very bad, and that refined salt was better than sea salt, etc. They sold us a number of facts because they had the authority, the scientific authority. But then I go back and go back and go back and go back to the best paper I have read in this subject. And that's the Genesis. And it tells me that when God finished with the creation, he talked to mankind and told them, this is what I give you for your nourishment. And with that food, we went for thousands of years. And yes, we had infections, and yes, we had epidemics, and yes, we have foreign things that attacked our bodies, but basically we were strong. Think of an American in the 1800s. He was well built, he was thin, very strong. If you talk about muscle, those people were very strong. They ran fast, they were fit, they were everything. Think of the average American today. Way different. And yes, some people might tell you we're living longer. Yes, we're living longer because we have almost no contagious diseases. We were able to control all these things, tuberculosis and typhoid and pneumonia, infections basically, infections that came from the outside into our body. But we created a new kind of disease that we pay for. It comes out of our wallet. Every time you buy a soda pop, every time you buy margarine, every time you buy an egg substitute, every time you do these things, every time you buy a pack of cigarettes, you're paying to get sick. And it's all because we are not obedient. And in today's program, I wanted to talk about the example of salt. Why? Because half the American population has or will have very soon a high blood pressure problem. Because salt is very rich in sodium. And sodium pulls water in. I'm going to give you simple examples that you could relate to. If you like Chinese food, don't you get very thirsty afterwards? And people will tell you, oh, I'm very thirsty, I need another glass of water. And people will tell you, yes, because you had Chinese food. Why? Because soy sauce is very salty. And if we eat very salty things, that salt is going to pull water into the bloodstream, and that's going to increase the amount of urine that goes out of the body. And then after a while, we're going to be dehydrated, so we need to replace that water. We'll become very thirsty. But what if our kidneys are not very healthy? You pull that water in, and then that water has a problem to be eliminated, and what happens is the pressure in the vascular system is going to go up. And that's going to fatigue. It's going to create fatigue in the heart, in the kidneys, and the vascular tree. But if we have less sodium, I'm not talking about any medication. You cut out sodium, you reduce sodium, you're going to start improving. Because as that pressure goes down, the kidneys become more efficient, because the kidneys do not work well under a lot of pressure. They're just like any of us. They need their space. You put them on a lot of pressure, they will not work well. So everything starts to improve when you reduce salt. So that's why when you go to the doctor with high blood pressure or with this type of problem, the first thing he's going to tell you is you have to eat less salt. The problem is he never tells you, why don't we make some changes, like sea salt? Why? Because sea salt, I was telling you, is 85% sodium chloride versus 99.9 in refined salt. So just by making a change from refined to sea salt, you are already having 15% less sodium. And that's going to reflect on your blood pressure. So why don't we do that? Not only that, but now we know that you have over 5% of that sea salt as potassium chloride. And potassium is the substance that your body needs to manage well sodium. Where's potassium? You know the answer. Bananas, tomatoes, oranges. We don't eat those things anymore. We have a hamburger, we have a steak, we have a pizza. Where's my banana? Where are my tomatoes? Probably one slice in a hamburger. Because don't think that pizza, that cheap pizza that you buy on the street is going to have a lot of tomato. Don't even think of it. If you do it at home, yes, it's going to be a good food. But those things you buy for a minimum amount of money, think again. Nobody gives you what you don't pay for. Then we are a population, America is low in potassium intake. So by having sea salt, we're helping. And I was telling you another good thing is the use of the addition of magnesium chloride. Magnesium is the other important element we need to manage sodium. and it's in the sea salt. And you say, oh, what a wonderful coincidence. Think again. Who made sea salt? The same that made us. Everything in perfection, everything is in concert. But when you decide that somebody else knows better than, and you believe that scientific guy in the white coat, then you're beginning to get problems. So sea salt contains not only less sodium, but it has the potassium, it has the magnesium we need. Magnesium is the #1 deficiency in America. Now the question is the nucleic acid in the blood. Doctor, but what about if I buy pink Himalayan salt? I love it. What am I going to do? Well, here's your answer. And the answer is very simple. When the world was forming, India, the subcontinent of India, was not part of Asia. It was floating. It was like an island. And then started moving against Asia and then collided with the rest of Asia. And in that collision, it pushed the Himalayas. It created must have been a real big thing, and earthquakes and you name it. The fact is that it took a lot of land and pushed it upwards. And that's the highest peaks in the world. That's the Everest. Well, in that process, because if you look at it in the map, between one part to the other, it's very wide. So it sequestered a big amount of ocean water, huge amount. And that ocean dried and went up with the Himalayas. So what you have is sea salt. That's the end result, very simple. When you have Himalayan pink salt, you're having sea salt. Go ahead. It's just as good as any other sea salt. You love the color? Perfect. It has other minerals too, because it has been mixed with the slate and things from the rocks, and that gives it a different color. But it's sea salt. Same, some people tell me, flower salt. Well, flower salt is sea salt also, just normal. What happens is that when these little lakes, they're drying, if there's a lot of air, they create foam. And that foam produces a very flaky salt, which is very expensive, by the way, but it's sea salt. But you can buy it, it looks beautiful, it's expensive, and if you want to give your table a gourmet touch, well, you can put some of those flakes up and above the plate you're going the food you're going to serve, and people will tell you, oh, this looks beautiful, it's delicious, because it is, it's sea salt, it's God-made sea salt. So go right ahead and use it. But the only problem I have is, if the salt, which should be humid, never gets humid, watch it. What have we done to that food? We're not being obedient. We're not taking the food created for us. We're producing it in a factory. Stay. We still have more to talk. My dear friends, I'm Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, and I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to talk to you, to go to your spaces, to your home, to your car, to your workplace, and talk about health. talk about well-being, and talk about joy. And for that, we need a healthy body. A healthy body is just a reflection of how we treat this body of ours. I have said it many, many times. If I wanted to talk to you about the benefits of using good fuel, good lubricant, good service on your vehicle, I wouldn't have any problem. I would have to talk less than 1 minute, and you'd be convinced that your car deserves the best fuel, the best lubricant, the best everything you can get for it. But it is so difficult to convince people that this body of ours needs care that it sometimes it's beyond my understanding. And I'm going to tell you why we are that way, why it is so difficult to understand it and to believe it. Because God made a body that works with perfection. And because of that perfection, our body can sort out a lot of the challenges we throw at it. It can bounce back. It's very resilient. It has possibilities that do not exist in the universe. We can heal. We can break a bone and have it new. We go through surgery, through famine, through every challenge we can, and we come back. We heal. And we believe that is not because we have a wonderfully created body. We believe because I take it for granted, he'll do whatever I want him to do. My body will, of course, accept any challenge. And I can smoke, and I will not sleep, and I will eat garbage, and I'm going to have soda pop, and I will get drunk. Nothing will happen. And many people give you this sort of argument, like, oh, I had a grandfather that died at 96 and he drank like a sailor. I don't know why we say that, but nevertheless. And that is what makes us believe that this body of ours, we have it for granted. The other problem is of this misunderstanding is that when we begin our lives, when we have the most energy, when we have the most possibilities of do things, is when our bodies are stronger and more resilient. So we can get away with things with very low consequence. I mean, we can go all night and go back to work the next morning without probably 15 minutes of sleep, and yes, we can get away with it. But as we live longer, we begin to understand that it's a big difference on what type of care our body had. And that is why some people are a piece of junk and some people look so well. And that is important because every time I talk to people, every time I talk to my patients, I always say, what do you want your children to be? Do you want them to live a long life? You want them to go to your burial? Or you want to bury them because you didn't teach them how to live well? And the environment gets every day more difficult because the assault, the amount of possibilities we have to do wrong in terms of health and our body multiply and get cheaper and get easier. And if we don't teach our children on how to sustain and how to obey and how to maintain a healthy pattern, they never will. So, at this hospital, for example, I see it over and over and over again. People that come in here on a wheelchair, people that come in here in a stretcher, people that can hardly move, people that are in pain, people that are suffering. And then days go by, and you can see how they start feeling better and improving and so forth. And I always say, this is like a wilted plant. I give you a wilted plant, and I start feeding you and watering and keeping you in good shape and changing you from shade to sun or vice versa. And you can see how the plant starts to recover. That's what happens with the human body when the human body is given the chance. And for that, you have to have information, because that information is going to make you take control of your life and your stamina and your energy and your enjoyment, because that's the end of it. The end of it is that you want to go on a barbecue with your children, you want to go on a trip with your children, you have to have fun with your family. You want to be there, yes, you want to live longer, but you want to be healthy. You don't want to be in a couch or in a hospital with tubes all around you. This hospital, big part of the foundation is because we look after all those things. We look after how we feed, how we provide for that body. And I was telling you, I go to the kitchen every day and I overlook things, and we make our breads and we make our things. Because talking about bread, for example, in today's environment, we do not ferment the bread anymore. Use baking soda. Well, baking soda leaves the wheat intact. But when fermented with yeast, the yeast eats on the gluten. And the bread becomes more digestible. Not only digestible, but that makes it also more nutritious. That's why in the old times they did it that way. But today, of course, they want to sell you bread that doesn't cost you, they don't cost them any time, because time is money. So you're not willing to ferment bread overnight when you can put baking soda, send it to the oven, and give it to people. And I say give it to people, not feed people with it, because you're not feeding people with that. So what we have to do is we have to start becoming more conscientious in what we buy, what foods we bring to our table, what foods we give to our children, and how we train our children. And you're going to see the results. You're going to be rewarded. You're going to see how everybody in the family feels better, starts losing weight, etc. Now, if you are 50, 60 years, sometimes we kind of lost track, and sometimes we say, I can't. Doctor, I have done this, I have done that. To me, it's very difficult. What can I do? Where do I start? If you want to make a serious start, you can come to BioCare Hospital. You can do a 10-day health getaway and start for 10 days and learn and do it and cleanse and oxygenate your body and use all these oxidative therapies and get ready for it. You're going to get the treatment, you're going to get the training, you're going to learn. You can cook with us. You can learn a lot of things. And you're going to see how people go back so much better. I always tell people, don't take it from me. As soon as you get back home, as soon as you get back to work, as soon as you return to your church, people are going to ask you, what did you do? I have patients whose relatives have said, oh, come on, tell me the truth. You went for something cosmetic. No, it's just being healthy. Health is beautiful. A person that's absolutely healthy is rosy, has nice complexion, and so on, because they have very good blood flow, very good oxygenation. Remember that life is in the blood. So in only 10 days, you're going to regain control of a lot of things. You can call it rejuvenation. And I call it rejuvenation not because I'm going to take 10 years of your life, but because you're going to feel as you felt 10 years ago. You're going to say, oh, I didn't have this energy in a long time. I didn't feel like doing this or like doing that. I have people that tell me, I finally decided to make that cruise my husband wanted to do. I was not interested anymore, but I'm excited now. I'm excited to go to the boat and travel with him and dance and have enjoyment. So you owe it to yourself. Whether you make small changes beginning today, like going to sea salt instead of refined products, and change the foods you eat, and improve the amounts of good foods in your diet, and you go back to fish 2-3 times a week, and you go back to your veggies and fresh fruits, and you put in the garbage everything that's in your pantry or fridge that should not be there, and discuss it all together with the family. Or you want to do a kickstart by coming to BioCare, do something. Do something, because you're going to be very happy, you're going to be very grateful, and I want to be your friend. I don't want to be your doctor. We'll talk next time.